Hi everybody, it's Keren here from TuppenceColoured.co.uk. Hi everybody, it's Keren here from TuppenceColoured.co.uk, and I'm on a walk. Get that straight. Hi everybody, it's Keren here from TuppenceColoured.co.uk, and thank you very much for joining me today. This is the card that I'm making today. It's a pull the tab card. Stay with me, I'll show you how I made it. Here's what I'm using today. My card base is Blushing Bride, and I've cut it to 4 inches by 11.5, scored and folded at 5 3/4. I've got a piece of Garden Impressions DSP, and this is 3 3/4 by 5.5. And I've cut a matting piece out of So Saffron, and this is, let me check my notes, 3 7/8 by 5 5/8. I've got some shimmering white, which I'm going to be stamping on. And I've got 2 smaller pieces of So Saffron. This is 2 inches by about 5.5, and this is just a little scrap that's left over, and I may use it, I may not. I'm still thinking about that one. I'm stamping using this set. It's called Hand Delivered, and it's one of the sets that you can get with Stampin' Rewards. So you can't actually buy this. You can only get this with your Stampin' Rewards, and you get Stampin' Rewards if your order or your workshop comes to £150 or more before postage and packaging. So this is a very special set. I'm using the Tailored Tag Punch. I'm stamping with Stays On ink. And I'm going to be using some of my Stampin' Right markers. Now, I've just got the Brights collection here. I am actually going to be using colours from other collections, and I will tell you what colours I'm using as I go along. And one last thing, I've got a little scrap of Old Olive 1/8 of an inch sheer ribbon. I'm going to set up my Stamparatus for stamping photopolymer stamps. So to do that, first of all, I'm going to turn it around that way, because that's the way I like to work. I like to come in from the left. I'm going to open up my plate, and I'm going to put down my foam mat, and I'm going to cover it with a piece of grid paper, which I've actually laminated. Okay, so that's going to be my stamping surface. I'm going to slip my stamp case underneath the left hand side of it, so that gives me a nice firm surface to work on. I've got my piece of shimmering white cardstock and one of my magnets. I don't need 2 for this particular piece. Okay, so here is my first stamp, and I'm going to put it face down onto the card, or about where I want it, and I'm going to pick it up by pressing down the plate of my Stamparatus. I'm inking up with Stays On, and Stays On works best if you kind of rub it in to the stamp. A little bit of tapping just to be sure. Press down and press over the stamp. Okay, that's not going anywhere. Both hands are free. Pick that up and pop that out of the way. Now I'm going to flip my Stamparatus plate over, so I can use both sides of the Stamparatus plate, and I'm just going to line up my second stamp. Right, now I'm going to give her a patterned skirt, so I want to line that up carefully to make sure that the pattern is in the right place. Okay, so there will be no sound in this bit because I am just going to be colouring in. So that's Petal Pink. I want to make sure that my DSP is well stuck down to the matting layer. So I'm going to start off by sticking it down with my liquid adhesive, and I'm going to put quite a bit on because I do want to make sure that this is really well stuck down, and I'm just going to slide that into place and get it as centered as I can. And rub that well down. Okay, so I want to make sure that that is well stuck to the base card before I start messing about with it, which I will be doing a bit later on. Okay, so I can leave that on one side for the glue to set up. Stamped out the balloons one more time, and I cut out the 3 balloons in the middle, and okay. I want this card to have a bit of dimension. So I stamped out the balloons one more time, and I coloured the 3 ones in the middle. 3, 2, 1. I wanted this card to have a bit of dimension, so 3, 2, 1. I want this card to be quite dimensional, so I stamped out the balloons again, and I coloured in these 3 from the front and the sort of the middle layer, and I'm going to give them a bit of a highlight. Now, if I bring these back in, these are the ones that I've already done, and as you can see, they look a lot more alive with a little bit of a white highlight on them. And the thing that I found worked best to give a white highlight was a paint pen. I tried with a chalk pen, and I also tried a gel pen, and they didn't really give me quite the result I was looking for. Whereas this paint pen, it's a paint marker, that one for me did the trick. So the other thing that I want to do is I also want to give the balloons a kind of raised up effect, and I don't know whether you can see on the back, but I've already worked on this piece. I've left the 3 in the middle flat because these are going to go on top of them, and the way that I did that was, first of all, I took a fine embossing stylus and I just traced over the lines where those balloons meet, and you could use a an empty ballpoint pen, that would work. But I have to have this handy, which is quite convenient, and I want to make sure that my paint is dry before I start embossing, so I'm going to give that a couple of seconds and be right back. Okay, so the paint is now dry, and if I flip this over, you can see that this is a piece where the stamping didn't quite work as planned, and I've got my embossing tool. This is one I use for shaping flowers, and again, anything with a reasonably sized round end would do. I could use the other end of that. That would work as well. So now these are nice and rounded, and they will go over the top of the pieces that are already there. And time for some dimensionals, I think. I'm going to use full-size dimensionals on these. Oh, I've got two there. Don't need two, only need one. Okay. Take off the backings. And line these up. This has had time for the glue to set, so now I'm ready to move on to the next stage. And while I was waiting, I did some marking on the card. So I marked the halfway point on the card, and I've drawn a line right the length of the card, and then I've measured up 1.5 inches from the bottom of the card, and then I've got measured a further 2 inches, so that's 3.5 inches from the bottom of the card, and in both those places I've drawn a line across. And now I'm going to take my craft knife and my ruler, and I'm just going to put my knife just to one side of that that line in the middle, and I'm just going to mark a start and end point, and I'm just going to cut through both layers, and I'm going over and over it to make sure I've cut all the way through. And let me just check, yes I have. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing on just the other side of that line. So I'm making a little slit. And this is actually maybe a tiny bit wider than it needs to be. So I'll bring that in a bit. There we go. And same thing again. So I'm making several passes with my blade, rather than trying to press too hard and possibly the knife slipping. Don't want that to happen. The trick is to make light passes, but a lot of them. Okay, let me flick that out. So as you can see, I've now got a slit down the centre of my card. Put the knife away before I do some damage. Okay, and I'm going to bring in my tailored tag punch, and again working on the back because that's where I can see where I've marked my centre line. I'm going to line up my punch, and I'm just going to snip that bit out, and I'm going to press quite hard because I'm going through card and paper, and that nearly went very, very wrong, and I would have been very, very unhappy. So yeah, keep a firm grip on your card at all times. There we go. And there it is. So while I've got the punch here, I'm going to take the 2-inch wide strip of So Saffron, and I'm going to feed that into the jaws of the punch, and I'm going to centre it and press. Okay. And that way, before I forget, I'm going to punch a small hole. This is my 1/8 of an inch handheld punch, and I'm just going to punch it at the end of that point there, and I'm going to feed my ribbon through, make a loop, feed it back. There we are, and now I've got something to hang on to when I pull my tab. On the back of this piece, as you can see, I've covered it quite generously with dimensionals, and I've left enough space for my tag to run up and down in that channel there. And actually, I think I could probably do with a couple more dimensionals just here and here, just to make sure that it stays put. Okay, all right. Oh, one more thing. I've got a candle here, and I'm just going to rub it along that slit there, just to help lubricate the card a bit. I might do the same thing on the other side. Okay, you don't have to do that, but it does help your mechanism to run smoothly. All right. Now, this is a bit of a plan B, because the original idea was that when you pulled the tag up, a message would be revealed. But I found that when I did that, the balloons on my balloon lady here were covering the message, so it was that was a bit of a waste of time. So we're going to go on to plan B, and yeah, I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna work this, but we'll give it a go. Yeah, we'll give it a try. So plan B, I think, is going to be for the lady to pop up and to reveal something that is under her feet. And we shall see. Okay, so I have a okay. So I've got a piece of scrap card here. This was from my yellow, my little piece of yellow, so saffron, and I'm just going to cut that down to about, what's that, just under ½ an inch, and now I'm going to fold it. So I'm going to fold back and forward, and then back again and forward again, and I'm just going to clip that off. Okay, so that I've got that sort of shape. Okay, and I'm going to put a bit of tear and tape along that piece there, and just pull it off. And now I'm going to hold it so that I've got my two little legs sticking up, and I'm just going to feed those two pieces through the slit in the card, open them up, put my tape on top, take off my backing, and position my balloon lady in the down position. Okay. And I'm going to put my tag also in the down position in just a moment. But first I'm going to take that off of the back, press that down, and now when I pull, she rises up through the air, and she's a bit on the ski whiff side, so we'll correct that, but there she goes. Right, plan A for this card was to stamp on the pull tab, and so when I pulled it up, the message would appear around about here. But as you can see, there was a slight fault with that plan, because the balloons cover where I planned to stamp the message. So yeah, that didn't work terribly well. So I've come up with plan B, which involves using some of this stuff. These are inkjet printable labels, and they're matte. Right, they're not shiny. They're you know, they're like a paper surface, but they are transparent. So I'm going to use Memento ink this time, because my Stays On is drying up a bit, and I'm just going to stamp Happy Birthday onto the inkjet label. And I still have some stuff around. You could get a few years ago, it's called Saf Matte, which does the same thing, but it's no longer, it's not made anymore. So if you have some, and by all means dig it out. But if you can't get it, well, this stuff works quite well. And I'm just blotting it off on this piece of scrap to make sure that it is dry. And I'm just going to cut out the words Happy Birthday. And because the backing is matte, and I know it looks opaque at the moment, but trust me, it is transparent. And because it's matte, it just blends in with the paper or card, and is practically invisible. So hopefully we can save this project. The other possibility would be to stamp something under her feet, but anything that I put down there will show when she's in the down position, and I want this to be a bit of a surprise. So yeah, you kind of, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to slide this now behind into position, so it's just about there. Come on, that's it. Needs to be a bit more this way. There we go. And if I rub that down, okay, the balloons still cover it a little bit, but you can see that it's Happy Birthday. And when it's in the down position, it's not visible. Pop it up, and there it is. And it's finally finished. And although it did not go according to plan, I think I managed to save it in the end. Now, I did go back and lift that label and restamp it, and this time I cut the happy and the birthday apart so that I could put them one either side of that big green balloon. So that is it for today. Thank you very, very much for joining me. I'd love it if you came back and saw me again sometime, but for now, bye bye.